Nana Akojua was 75 years old, a grandmother loved in her small village. She was gentle, calm, and full of wisdom. Her days were quiet, filled with caring for her little garden, chatting with neighbors, and sitting on her wooden stool in the evenings while children gathered around to listen to her stories. Life in the village moved slowly, but her heart always longed for the time she could visit her grandchildren in the big city. They were her joy, her light, and her reason to smile. One bright morning she woke up before the sun. She folded her cloth neatly, tied it around her waist, and covered her gray hair with a scarf. Her wrinkled hands moved slowly but with care, making sure everything was perfect. She placed her small bag by the door. Inside it were gifts she had prepared, groundnuts, dried fish, and small beads she had strung herself. She wanted to see the joy on her grandchildren's faces when she arrived. The train station was busy when she reached. People rushed back and forth, some with heavy bags, others with children pulling at their hands. The sound of voices, footsteps, and the whistle of the train filled the air. Nana Akojua held her ticket tightly in her hand, pressing it against her chest like something precious. She had saved for weeks to buy it. When the crowd began to move toward the platform, she joined quietly, shuffling slowly but steadily with her walking stick. Her heart beat fast with both excitement and worry. She had not traveled by train for a long time and the city felt far away. At last her turn came. She smiled at the two young staff members standing by the door of the train. She stretched her hand forward, showing her ticket with pride. But instead of letting her pass, one of the young men shook his head. "The train is full," he said quickly, not even looking at her face. Nana Akojua blinked. "Full?" she repeated softly. She glanced behind him. She could see seats inside, empty and waiting. She did not understand. "Yes, full," the second staff member added. His voice carried impatience as if she were bothering him. "No more space. You can wait for the next one." Her lips trembled. She held out her ticket again. "But I bought my ticket," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. They both looked at her with cold eyes. One of them shrugged. "Rules are rules. Step aside." As she stood there, confusion clouded her mind. Suddenly she noticed something that made her heart sink. Just behind her, a group of younger passengers, laughing loudly, came forward. They had no tickets in their hands. She watched carefully as the staff greeted them with wide smiles. Without even stopping them, they allowed the group to slip past and climb aboard the train. Nana Akojua's chest tightened. She turned to the staff, her voice shaking. Why do they go in without tickets and I cannot?" But they ignored her. One of them gave a small smirk as though mocking her question. The younger passengers looked back at her, their eyes full of amusement. Some even laughed softly. One whispered loud enough for her to hear, "Old people should stay in the village. The train is not for them." Her ears burned with shame. She wanted to speak, to remind them that she had paid, that she had a right to travel. But the words stuck in her throat. She felt suddenly small in the middle of the noisy crowd. The whistle of the train blew again, sharp and final. Nana Akojua's heart raced. She wanted to run, to force her way in, but her legs would not move fast enough. The doors closed slowly, then locked. She stood frozen as the train pulled away, its heavy wheels grinding against the rails. The sound grew louder, then softer, until it disappeared into the distance. Dust rose in the air where it had been, and silence settled around her. Nana Akojua was left standing alone, her bag in her hand, her ticket still clutched tightly. Her shoulders slumped, her eyes stung with tears she did not want to show. She turned her head slightly and saw the mocking faces of a few young men near the platform. They had watched everything, and now their laughter followed her like a cruel shadow. Her chest ached. Not because she missed the train but because of the humiliation. She had done nothing wrong. She had followed the rules, bought her ticket, waited patiently. Yet she had been pushed aside, treated like she was invisible. Slowly she walked away from the platform. Her step felt heavy. Her stick tapped the ground, steady but sad. Around her, the station carried on as if nothing had happened. People rushed, shouted, bought food and argued over seats. No one cared about the old woman who had been left behind. When she finally reached a quiet corner, she sat down on a wooden bench. Her hands trembled as she placed the ticket in her lap. She stared at it for a long time. The paper looked so small, so powerless. Memories filled her mind. She thought of her grandchildren waiting for her in the city. She imagined their small faces, full of expectation, running to her when she arrived. She had promised them stories, hugs, and gifts. How would she tell them she had been left behind? A single tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, hoping no one saw. She was Nana Akosua, the grandmother of wisdom. She always told the children in her village to be strong, to face life with courage. Yet in that moment she felt weak, broken, and forgotten. The sun climbed higher, burning hot over the station. People moved around her, buying tickets for other trains. A kind woman selling oranges came near and looked at her. "Mame, are you all right?" the woman asked gently. Nana Akosua forced a small smile. "I am fine," she whispered, though her voice betrayed her pain. The woman hesitated, then offered her an orange without asking for money. Nana Akosua accepted it with trembling hands. That small act of kindness warmed her heart for a moment, like a candle in the darkness. But when she looked at the tracks again, the emptiness returned. The train was gone, and with it, her chance to see her grandchildren that day. The laughter, the mocking faces, the unfairness of it all echoed in her memory. She closed her eyes and prayed silently for strength. She knew she would not give up. She would find another way, even if it meant waiting for hours or traveling by a different road. But the wound in her heart, the wound of humiliation, would take much longer to heal. For the first time in many years, Nana Akosua felt what it meant to be old in a world that no longer respected age. And that hurt her more than the missed train. Nana Akosua sat quietly on the wooden bench, her small bag by her side. Around her, the noise of the train station continued, vendors shouting, children crying, men arguing over tickets. But inside her heart, there was only silence. The humiliation of being pushed aside still burned, but she did not allow tears to fall. Instead, she closed her eyes. She remembered the voice of her late husband, Kofi. His words came back to her as if he were sitting beside her once more. "Wisdom is stronger than force," he used to say. Whenever she was upset or treated unfairly, he reminded her not to rush in anger. "Think, Akosua. Use your mind, not your fists. That is where true strength lies." Her lips moved silently as if repeating those words to herself. As she sat there, a stranger approached. He was a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a kind face. He had been sitting on another bench nearby, quietly watching everything. He leaned closer and spoke in a low voice so that only she could hear. "Mame," he said gently, "do not be surprised by what happened. The staff here are corrupt. They do not respect tickets. They only allow those who give them bribes to enter." Nana Akosua turned her head slowly and looked at him. "So my money was not enough?" she asked softly. The man shook his head. "Your ticket is real. But unless you add something extra, they pretend the train is full. That is how they make themselves rich. Many people know this, but few have the courage to speak." Nana Akosua sat in silence. The truth stung. She thought of the mocking laughter, the empty seats inside the train, the young people who passed by freely. It was not her age that had stopped her. It was greed and dishonesty. Her heart grew heavy, but then something shifted inside her. She straightened her back and lifted her chin. She had lived 75 years. She had raised children, buried her husband, survived hunger, war, and sickness. Would she now allow two young men at a station to steal her dignity? No, she would not. She looked at the man and smiled faintly. "Thank you, my son," she said. "Your words have opened my eyes. But I will not let this pass. My dignity matters." The man looked surprised. "What will you do, Mame? They are powerful here." "Powerful?" Nana Akosua chuckled softly, though her eyes were sharp. "They are only boys with uniforms. They may cheat today, but truth will always rise. I will act." The man shook his head with worry, but he also admired her courage. He whispered again, "Be careful. They do not like those who challenge them." But Nana Akosua was no longer afraid. She picked up her bag, adjusted her scarf, and stood. Her walking stick tapped firmly on the ground. Each step she took was slow but filled with determination. She walked back toward the platform where the two staff members still stood. Another crowd had gathered for the next train. The same staff were laughing and joking as if nothing had happened. Nana Akosua stopped in front of them. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. "My sons," she said, calling them with respect though her heart was firm, "why do you shame your mothers and fathers with your actions?" The two men looked at her, confused. One frowned. "Old woman, move aside. We are busy." But she did not move. Her voice grew louder, strong enough for the crowd around to hear. "You stopped me from boarding though I had my ticket. You told me the train was full, yet you allowed others without tickets to pass. What? Is this the way of honesty? Is this the way to serve your people?" The crowd stirred. People turned to look at her. Some nodded, whispering to one another. They too had seen the unfairness but had stayed silent. Now, hearing the old woman speak boldly, their hearts began to rise. One of the staff members grew angry. He stepped forward, his face dark. You dare accuse us? Who are you to question our work? Nana Akosua lifted her stick and pointed it gently at him. I am old enough to be your grandmother. I have seen kings rise and fall. Do not think I fear you. You wear a uniform, but under it you are still a child. And today, you have shamed not only yourselves but also this land. Her words struck like thunder. The crowd grew louder. Murmurs filled the air. A young man from the back shouted, She speaks the truth. We have all seen it. Another woman cried, Yes. They take bribes. We all know it. The two staff members shifted uneasily. Their smiles faded. For the first time, fear flickered in their eyes. They realized the crowd was turning against them. Nana Akosua did not stop. She raised her voice higher, letting it flow through the station. Our country suffers not because of enemies from outside, but because of small acts like this: dishonesty, greed, and disrespect. If our young men who should protect the people choose corruption, then what future do we have? Her words carried wisdom and pain. People clapped. Some shouted in support. The once busy station grew quiet as more people gathered around, listening. Even vendors stopped selling. Even children hushed. The two staff members exchanged nervous glances. One muttered, Let us go. But the other shook his head, trying to act strong. She is only an old woman, he said loudly. Why do you all listen? But the crowd answered with one voice. Because she speaks the truth. The station master, a man in a larger uniform, appeared when he heard the noise. He pushed through the crowd and looked at Nana Akosua. What is happening here? He demanded. Before the staff could speak, the crowd pointed at them. They take bribes, many shouted. They stopped this grandmother though she had her ticket. They let others in without tickets. The station master's face hardened. He turned to the two young men. Is this true? He barked. The men stammered, trying to deny it, but the voices of the crowd rose louder. The truth was too clear to hide. Nana Akosua stepped forward again. Her voice softened, but it was still steady. My son, she said to the station master, I do not seek revenge. I seek respect. I bought my ticket. I followed the rules. I ask only that justice is done, and that honesty returns to this place. The station master looked at her, then at the angry faces of the people. He knew he could not ignore this. He ordered the two staff members to step aside. You will face investigation, he said firmly. The crowd clapped and cheered. Some rushed to Nana Akosua, praising her courage. She only smiled faintly, adjusting her scarf again. The station master turned to her with respect. Mame, forgive us. You will be given the best seat on the next train. Nana Akosua nodded. Thank you, my son. But remember, it is not about the seat. It is about dignity. Never forget that the smallest wrong act can break the trust of the people. Her words settled in the air like a blessing. She returned to her bench, her heart lighter. She had not only defended herself but had also spoken for many others who had suffered in silence. She knew her late husband would be proud. Wisdom, not force, had given her victory. The next morning, Nana Akosua rose early. Her night had been restless, but her heart was steady. She knew what she had to do. The memory of the crowd at the station, the shouts of agreement, and the faces of the two guilty staff still burned inside her mind. She had spoken the truth, but speaking once was not enough. If the corruption ended only in words, it would return again like weeds after rain. So she tied her cloth neatly, packed her bag, and set out for the city. This time she was not traveling to see her grandchildren. This time she was traveling for justice. The journey was long. The road stretched far, and the bus she boarded swayed side to side as it moved. But Nana Akosua did not complain. She sat upright, her walking stick resting across her lap, her eyes watching the passing trees and villages. She kept repeating to herself the words of her late husband. Wisdom is stronger than force. By midday she reached the city. It was loud and busy, full of cars, horns, and rushing feet. The tall buildings seemed to tower above her, but she did not feel small. She asked for directions and finally arrived at the railway's head office. The building was big and modern, with glass doors and shining floors. Men in suits and women in heels walked in and out, carrying files and speaking into phones. To them, she looked like just another old village woman with a scarf on her head and a walking stick in her hand. She stepped to the reception desk and greeted politely. Good afternoon, my daughter, she said to the young woman behind the desk. I have come to report a matter of injustice. The receptionist barely looked at her. She tapped on her computer and said, Take a seat. Someone will attend to you. Nana Akosua sat on a chair in the corner. She waited patiently as 1 hour passed, then 2. Each time she tried to ask again, the staff brushed her aside. "We are busy," they said. "Come another day." Finally, one official in a shiny suit walked past and stopped. He frowned at her. "Old woman, why are you here?" "I came with a complaint," she said calmly. "At the station I was denied entry though I had a ticket. Others without tickets were allowed in. I believe there is corruption. I want justice." The man chuckled and shook his head. "Corruption? At our railway? Impossible. Go home, grandmother. These things are too big for you." His words stung, but she did not reply in anger. She only lowered her eyes for a moment, then stood up slowly. "Thank you," she said quietly. And with her walking stick tapping the ground, she left the office. They thought she was defeated. They thought she would give up. But they did not know Nana Akosua. She walked through the busy streets, thinking carefully. She knew the officials would not help her. They had already decided she was unimportant. But she also knew she was not alone in this world. She remembered her years of service in her community. She had helped to organize women's groups, to teach young mothers how to care for their children, to guide children in reading and writing. She had supported farmers during hard times and spoken at village meetings when leaders needed advice. In her 75 years, she had built not only a family but also a network of friends. And one of those friends was Kwame. Kwame was no ordinary man. He was a retired judge, a man of respect and wisdom. Many years ago, he and his wife had lived in the same town as Nana Akosua. They had worked together on community projects, and though life had taken them to different places, their friendship had remained. So Nana Akosua went to his house. Kwame was sitting in his garden, reading a newspaper when she arrived. His hair was white, his back a little bent, but his eyes were still sharp. When he saw her, he rose quickly and smiled. "Akosua. My sister, it has been too long," he said warmly. He led her inside, gave her water to drink and asked her about her journey. After some time, Nana Akosua told him everything. She spoke of the station, the humiliation, the bribes, the mocking laughter, and the officials who dismissed her in the city office. Kwame listened without interruption. His eyes grew darker as he heard her words. Finally, he set his cup down and said firmly, "This cannot stand. You are not the first to suffer this, I am sure. Many others must have faced the same thing but lacked the courage to speak." Nana Akosua nodded. "Yes, Kwame. That is why I must act. Not only for myself, but for all those who will come after me." Kwame leaned back in his chair. "You have come to the right place. I may be retired, but I am not powerless. I know the law and I know how to fight for justice. But we must prepare carefully. We need evidence, witnesses, and truth strong enough that no one can deny it." A small smile touched Nana Akosua's lips. She felt her burden lighten. "That is why I came to you. Alone, I am only a grandmother with a walking stick. But with you, I know the truth will find its voice." Together they began to plan. In the days that followed, Kwame and Nana Akosua worked side by side. She returned to the station and spoke to passengers quietly. Some were afraid, but others were brave enough to share their experiences. Many told the same story. They had seen staff taking bribes, they had been denied seats despite tickets, they had been humiliated like her. Kwame wrote everything down. He took signed statements, collected names, and even found one honest worker at the station who admitted the corruption was true. Day by day the case grew stronger. Nana Akosua's small bag became filled with papers, letters, and notes. Each time she added one more, she felt hope rise higher in her heart. The railway officials thought she was weak, but they were wrong. She had lived too long, seen too much, and carried too much wisdom to give up now. When everything was ready, Kwame said, "Now we will take this to the right place, the court of law. Let the truth be spoken not in whispers, but in front of the whole nation." Nana Akosua clasped her hands together. "Yes. Let them know that age is not weakness. Let them know that dignity cannot be bought with bribes." Her eyes shone with quiet fire. For the first time in many days she felt not only strong but also proud. She had chosen not to cry, not to give up, but to fight with wisdom. And now, with Kwame beside her, she was ready for the battle ahead. A week later, the town hall stood at the center of attention. People filled its wide hallways and wooden benches, buzzing with whispers and curiosity. News had spread quickly. An old grandmother had challenged the railway company, and the truth was about to be spoken in public. For many it was surprising. For others it was inspiring. When the doors opened, the crowd poured inside. Passengers who had suffered from the same corruption came, eager to hear their own stories reflected in her voice. Staff from the railway company were present too, their uniforms stiff and their faces uneasy. Community leaders, journalists, and even local chiefs gathered, ready to witness what would unfold. The air inside the hall was heavy with tension. Some doubted that a 75-year-old woman could shake such a powerful institution. Others secretly hoped she would succeed because they were tired of injustice. At the far end of the hall sat the panel of leaders, elders of the community, representatives from the government, and a few railway directors who looked uncomfortable in their suits. In front of them stood a simple wooden podium, waiting for the person who would speak. Then the doors opened once more and silence spread like water across the room. Nana Akosua entered. She was dressed neatly in her traditional cloth, her scarf tied carefully on her head. Her walking stick tapped gently against the floor with each step, but her back was straight and her eyes were steady. She walked slowly not because of weakness but because of dignity. Every step she took was a statement. She had not come to beg but to speak the truth. People turned their heads as she passed. Some whispered in respect, others in surprise. She walked to the front, stood tall and faced the crowd. For a moment the hall was quiet. Even the restless children fell still. Her voice, though calm, carried power. "My name is Nana Akosua," she began. "I am 75 years old. I am a mother, a grandmother, and a member of this community. I have lived long enough to see good times and bad. But what I saw last week at the train station, it should never have happened." She paused, her hands resting lightly on her walking stick. The silence deepened. "I had a ticket," she continued. "I came early. I stood in line like everyone else. But when my turn came, I was pushed aside. I was told the train was full. Yet I watched others without tickets walk freely past the guards. They paid money into hidden hands. They laughed as I stood there, humiliated. I was not the only one. Many of us have suffered this, but we stayed quiet, thinking nothing would change. But I say today, enough is enough." A murmur spread through the room. Heads nodded, eyes widened, and gasps of recognition echoed from the benches. She lifted her chin slightly. "The elderly are not weak. We are not invisible. We deserve respect just like every other passenger. Corruption is not a small matter. It steals dignity. It steals trust. It steals the future. If nothing changes, our children will inherit a system built on lies." The room trembled with her words. Then Kwame, the retired judge, stood beside her and began to present the evidence they had gathered. He read aloud signed statements from passengers. He displayed testimonies that described the same injustice. Tickets denied, bribes demanded, humiliation repeated. One brave railway worker stepped forward and confirmed what everyone suspected, that corruption had become routine. Gasps filled the hall as witness after witness spoke. The pattern was clear. No one could deny it. The officials at the front shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some wiped sweat from their brows. A few tried to argue, but their voices were drowned by the mountain of evidence. One of the community leaders leaned forward and said firmly, "The truth cannot be hidden any longer. What this woman says is not only her story, it is the story of many." The panel turned to the railway directors. Their polished confidence had melted into silence. They were cornered, trapped by truth itself. Finally, the head of the railway company stood. His voice was low and uncertain. We acknowledge the failures," he said. "We cannot deny what has been shown today. The staff involved will be punished. And from this day, reforms will begin to ensure fairness, respect, and dignity for all passengers, especially the elderly." Applause erupted across the hall. Some clapped gently, others clapped hard, their hands echoing against the wooden walls. Tears glistened in a few eyes. The crowd had not only witnessed justice but also courage, the courage of a grandmother who refused to stay silent. Nana Akosua bowed her head slightly. She did not smile with pride but with quiet relief. She had not done this for glory. She had done it because dignity mattered, because truth mattered, and because the next generation deserved better. When she turned to leave the podium, the hall rose to its feet. Men, women, and children stood, clapping and cheering. Some shouted her name, others simply nodded in deep respect. In that moment she was not just a grandmother, she was a symbol of strength, proof that wisdom and courage could defeat fear and corruption. As she walked out of the hall, Kwame by her side, she whispered softly to herself, "Wisdom is stronger than force." Her husband's words had guided her once again, and today, they had lit a path for an entire community. The sun was setting outside, painting the sky with gold and orange. The air felt lighter, freer, as though justice itself had breathed life into the town. Children pointed at her with admiration. Young women smiled with hope, and elders greeted her with blessings. From that day on, people spoke of her with honor. They told their children, "Do not think age is weakness. Do not think silence is the only answer. Remember Nana Akosua, the grandmother who stood against corruption and won." Weeks later, the train station looked the same on the outside, the same platform, the same tracks stretching into the horizon, the same morning rush of travelers with their bags and chatter. Yet, for Nana Akosua, everything felt different. The place that had once humiliated her was now filled with quiet respect. She walked slowly toward the platform, her cloth neatly wrapped around her, her walking stick tapping the ground with each step. The staff who once ignored her now noticed her the moment she arrived. Two young attendants rushed forward, bowing slightly as they greeted, "Good morning, Nana." Their voices carried respect, not mockery. One of them offered to carry her small bag, but she shook her head with a smile. "I can carry it," she said softly, her eyes kind. "But thank you for asking." Travelers turned their heads, whispering her name with admiration. Some pointed her out to their children, saying, "That is the grandmother who changed everything." Little ones gazed at her with wide eyes as if seeing a hero. When it was time to board, the crowd stepped aside naturally, creating space for her to pass. She did not push or raise her voice. Respect opened the way for her. As she reached the train, the conductor himself bowed and guided her to a seat of honor by the window. It was not a throne, but the dignity it carried made it feel like one. Nana Akosua settled gently onto the seat, her hands folded over her lap. She looked around at the passengers, some of whom smiled warmly at her. She returned their smiles with quiet grace. Inside, her heart was calm. She did not seek revenge through anger or pride. Instead, her revenge had been wisdom, truth, and patience. And now, it was not only she who enjoyed respect. The reform she had fought for meant every passenger would be treated fairly, no matter their age, wealth, or status. As the train rumbled forward, memories of that painful day returned. She remembered being pushed aside, hearing the laughter, watching the train leave her behind. For a moment, her chest tightened, but then she breathed deeply and reminded herself that pain had been the seed of change. If not for that humiliation, she might never have raised her voice. Her thoughts drifted to her grandchildren in the city. Soon she would see their bright faces, hear their laughter, and hold them close. She smiled, knowing she could tell them proudly what had happened. When life pushes you down, she would say, "Do not stay down. Stand with dignity even if your hands tremble. Stand with wisdom even if your voice shakes. That is the true strength." Other passengers nearby began whispering their own stories. A young man leaned toward his friend and said, "I used to pay bribes every week just to board this train. Now I can enter freely with my ticket. It is because of her." An elderly woman sitting 2 seats away murmured, "She fought for all of us. We should never forget." The train rolled past green fields and villages, and with every mile, it seemed to carry not just passengers but also the weight of her legacy. At the next stop, more passengers boarded. Some recognized her immediately. They greeted her respectfully, offering her food and water from their bags. She declined most of it with a smile, but when a little girl shyly handed her a small piece of bread, she accepted it. "Thank you, child," she said, her voice warm. "May you grow with kindness." The girl's mother whispered, "She is the grandmother we told you about. She fought the railway." The girl's eyes shone brighter, as if she were meeting someone from a storybook. As the journey continued, Nana Akosua gazed out the window, watching the landscape shift. The sun was high now, shining brightly, and in that sunlight she felt her late husband's presence. His words echoed in her heart once more, "Wisdom is stronger than force." She nodded silently as if speaking to him across time. Her victory was not hers alone. It belonged to every old woman who had been ignored, every man who had been cheated, every passenger who had felt powerless. It belonged to the community, which now carried a new lesson, that respect must be given no matter one's age or station in life. When the train finally reached the city, the platform was busy with people waiting. Among them were her grandchildren. They spotted her through the window and began waving wildly, their small arms moving as fast as their joy. She waved back, her heart swelling with love. As she stepped off the train, her grandchildren ran to her, hugging her legs tightly. "Grandma, Grandma, we missed you." She bent down slowly, resting her hand on their heads. "I missed you too, my little ones. And I have stories to tell you, stories of courage and truth." Her daughter, standing nearby, looked at her with both pride and relief. "Mother, the whole town speaks of you. You have become a light for many." Nana Akosua chuckled softly. "I did what was right. That is all. But remember, Justice is not about age, it is about heart. Word of her actions had already traveled far beyond the town. Newspapers wrote about her bravery. Radio stations told her story. Even in other villages, her name was spoken as an example of how one voice, even a trembling one, could change a system. In the weeks that followed, schools invited her to speak. Churches and community groups called her to share her wisdom. She never bragged, never lifted herself above others. She simply repeated the truth: respect must be given. Corruption must be fought. And age is not weakness, it is strength. Some tried to mock her still, whispering behind her back about the stubborn grandmother. But their whispers could not erase her impact. Even those who disliked her knew deep down that she had forced a new dawn of fairness. And so her life continued, quiet but no longer invisible. She was not just a grandmother visiting her grandchildren. She was a living story, a reminder carved into the memory of her people. Years later, when children sat by firesides, they would hear her name spoken in tales. And when young ones asked, "Who was Nana Akosua?" the answer would be clear. She was the grandmother who showed us that respect is not a gift but a right. She was the woman who proved that wisdom and courage can move even the strongest walls. And in the end, that was her greatest victory, not just the reforms, not just the applause, but the seed she had planted in the hearts of her people. A seed of dignity, of justice, and of hope.